hopefully you guys can all see this right now, and introduce Margaret. So basically, Margaret Osborne actually is a small business marketing consultant, as well as she is a prof at Seneca College in marketing. In fact, she runs that side of it. And she has a lot of experience in almost every industry, from CPG, so consumer packaged goods, to financial services, and many others. I'm going to stop there, and Margaret, if you want to further introduce yourself, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Great, thanks Carla, and welcome everybody. I'm not going to talk too much about myself here. I think as we go, you'll get a sense of the different areas I've had a hand in, and I tried to give as wide a variety of examples as I could, so hopefully I'll touch on the type of businesses that you're involved in. But certainly as we go, or at the end, if you have questions, if I haven't covered industry sectors that you're involved in particularly, we can look at that. And my background is pretty diverse, so I hope I'll be able to address anything that's specific to what your challenges are. So I'm sorry it's 7 instead of 5, but the 2 that I added in are not large, but I thought that they were critical to stand alone as steps in your plan. I thought we would start, to borrow a phrase from Stephen Covey, with the end in mind, and then that is, what is it that we're trying to produce when we're doing a strategic marketing plan. This document, when you're done, is going to be your roadmap to success. Usually 10 to 15 pages, but that depends on the complexity of your business. You may have exhibits that you attach at the end, particularly if you're looking for funding and you need to back up the claims that you're making or the directions that you've chosen. There's certainly a lot of templates that you can get online or through some of the business support providers that are free, that will help you organize the written version of your marketing plan. And actually, I usually find writing the plan itself is the easy part. It's generating the strategy, the thinking, and the researching before you sit down to write that's a bit more challenging. So next slide. The hard part is really what I wanted to talk to you about today, and that is deciding on your strategy, who your customers are, what you're going to do to satisfy them better than anyone else, of course, and then more importantly, really what you're not going to do. And that process, as I say, of developing your strategy takes a lot of time and effort, whereas writing it down can be quite straightforward. Again, strategy is really a lot is about trade-offs, and the most successful businesses, the ones that are the ones that really stick to their knitting and know themselves, know their core competencies. When I think about this, I think about a speech that I actually heard about 10 years ago, and it's very unusual for me to remember a speech I heard a month or a year ago, let alone one 10 years ago. But it was a fellow called Philip Orsino, who's a famous Canadian businessman. He'd won the CEO of the Year award, and he was the CEO of a door company called Pendor that he started from scratch in 1983, and he grew it to $2.5 billion. His marketing plan really came down to knowing what he was good at, and that was building doors. And the whole idea of his strategy was sell more doors. And again, I can vividly remember him saying that from 10 years ago. All we do is sell doors, and all we try to do is sell more doors. So he didn't get into windows, he didn't get into carpeting, he didn't get into lighting, he didn't get into anything else. His 100% focus was just on selling doors, and that was the key to his success. So for you, again, a clear vision of your strategy, you can assess the resources you need and finalize your business planning, and as we started with, you can stay on that road to success. And so again, the step one is absolutely knowing yourself. What product or service are you planning to provide better or faster or more variety than anyone else? In marketing, we call that your unique selling proposition. Some big organizations have ones that you're familiar with. Walmart, always the low price, always. if they can't sell it at the lowest price, a product or service, they're not gonna offer it. If you want to offer something that's uniquely valuable to your customers, of course, you have to know what the other guys are doing and what the other guys are not doing. So, you may be looking at offering tutoring services in your neighborhood. And there may be other people doing that, maybe specifically aimed to help high school students get into the university of their choice. But there may not be anyone that's offering service for students that have special needs or having behavior problems. That would be your unique selling proposition, that you're doing, that in a way that nobody else is doing. You have to look at what's going to make you stand out from the crowd. So, maybe your product's a brand new solution to an old problem. Maybe the way that you sell your product is more convenient. Maybe the service you offer depends on a unique talent that you have. There's someone in my neighborhood that offers singing lessons for those of us that, can sing in the shower, but we're terrified to sing in public. And that's what makes her unique, is that she's very good with dealing with people that have a phobia to overcome. Also in my neighborhood, for example, there's a dentist who has really defined herself as being very fashion forward. She's female. Her office is full of reality TV shows and fashion magazines, and her staff know all the latest celebrity gossip. So even going to the dentist is quite different and fun, because she's defined her practice to be unique. Okay, so again, the step of knowing yourself and knowing what you do uniquely isn't over until you've really done a very critical and honest evaluation of your strengths and weaknesses. And that's, holding that mirror up and looking at yourself in a way that is honestly self-critical. You may need to ask for outsiders to give you input on that. But if you can get a good sense of your unique strengths, it really does become like competing on your home turf every day. Step 2 is choosing your target market. This is the step that really can take time and research. This is the step that small businesses are often tempted to skimp on a little bit, especially when you have an idea or concept or invention that you're really excited about and that you're sure that everybody's going to beat a path to your door. The research that you do here can be what we call primary research, where you're doing surveys yourself, picking up the phone, calling people. Or it can be what we call secondary or desk research, where you look at online data, surveys. There's some great sources for that information. But this is actually the step that I think most people maybe don't spend enough time on, and it's not as hard to do as you might think if you haven't done it before, but it is critical. I was involved actually in a situation which is a good example of not doing enough primary research, working with a group of investors here in Canada that wanted to replicate a large niche retail chain in the States. It was actually a beauty supply chain in the Midwest that was very profitable. These investors, their research and development was what we know as rob and duplicate. They looked around to see other organizations that were being successful and tried to duplicate them in Canada. So they put together an offer for Toronto women that was very similar to what they had seen in the Midwest. And it didn't do very well. In fact, it failed miserably because the hair demand for women in the States, it's big hair and perms and mall bangs, whereas it's not what the Canadian market was looking for. They were able to rebrand it and restock it, locations here for Canadian women that were of African or Asian descent, and there was huge demand for that. But if they had done that preliminary research and chosen that as their target market in the first place, we all would have saved an awful lot of time and money and frustration. So again, a target market, it's really just a group of people that have a lot in common and that have needs that are not currently being satisfied. Again, another example, us lefties are not always well served. There's a lot of left-handed people in Toronto in technical fields. One that I run into in the optical field, very specifically, the rulers are all set up to measure people with your right hand, and you can't read the numbers on them if you use your left hand. So if you happen to be a tool maker that had the strength that you were able to customize designs, maybe you could look at that target market. Sometimes you would look at just a certain age range. When you're choosing a target market, jeans for teens, they're going to want something different than mom jeans for the middle-aged ladies. Sometimes your target market will be one gender, male or female. Usually your target market is defined by income level, sometimes an educational level. For example, target markets for the major newspapers, Toronto Sun, Toronto Star, Globe and Mail, they're divided or segmented by educational level so that, again, the style of written communication is appropriate for their readership. If you're selling jeans, you probably wouldn't look at education levels when you're segmenting your market. Once you've actually described your market, by age or income or gender or a specific behavior like left-handedness, your next challenge is to determine the size of the market. So again, how many left-handed people are there in the optical field? Is that a big enough market to worry about? It looks like it probably isn't because there aren't any left-handed rulers out there. How many people that don't have the high school education are reading a traditional newspaper? Is that market big enough if that's the strength that you have? Jeans for teens, jeans for moms, that's probably much larger. So is there a need that your strength would allow you to satisfy better than what the other guys are doing? There's an example of a company based in Montreal right now called Second Denim that just started, I think, late 2000, that's been able to come up with uniquely comfortable, high-quality jeans for middle-aged women. And not a national brand. It may be one you've never heard of, but they did identify a very specific target market in terms of age, income, and body shape that they've been able to address more effectively than many other companies. If you do use demographics or population statistics like age and income, it is pretty easy to determine how big your target market's going to be with a little bit of that desk research. One hint is that Statistics Canada has a huge database of information that can often help you figure out right away if that market size is big enough for your business. So the next step, step 3, you've chosen your target market. You have a basic idea of a description of them. The next step is really getting inside their head and knowing them intimately. Using the word intimate, Victoria's Secret is really a great example of a company that understands who their shopper is. They actually, I've heard them give presentations where they talk about the profile they developed of their prototype ideal customer. They call her Vicky, I think. It's about 30, 40 pages, the profile they've written about this imaginary lady's life, where she lives, how many kids she has, what kind of minivan she drives, how much she spends monthly on personal items, right down to things like what does she watch on TV, what does she eat for breakfast. They imagine the whole woman. Sorry, did I hear somebody there? We're okay? So they write this profile as a story And all of the people that work in their marketing area understand what her beliefs are, her priorities, her aspirations. And when they make a strategic decision in marketing, they always ask themselves, what would Vicky or Victoria want before making any decisions in the marketing area. And the better that you understand the customer that you've targeted, obviously the better you can satisfy them. So, at this stage, you want to observe these people. Companies like will go in and watch women clean their houses to see that the Swiffer would be of benefit to them. You want to talk to them. You want to engage them on social media. Before you plan what you're going to offer to them, you really need to understand her needs, priorities, how she makes decisions about buying your type of product. And then you can narrow down specifically which needs of hers you choose to address. And that's pretty critical to get very specific in that area. Again, an example, if you're starting a personal training business for young moms on the go, it might really be the need for a time out that would make your service the preference for that customer group over the need for convenience to have you visit her home. So before you design a product where you go to her home, if you found out that what she really wants is to get away from the kids for half an hour every couple of days, you need to understand that. You have to be a little bit careful that, people will give that sort of socially acceptable answer that, I want to spend more time with my kids. And if you get to know her really well, you may find that, that what she's really looking for is an excuse, a valid excuse to get out of the house for personal training. And you would want to take that into account. So step 3 is really about getting inside her head. Step 4 is now looking at how you're going to satisfy the needs that you've identified. And for any of you that have had a bit of marketing exposure, this is where we get into the 4 Ps that we talk about traditionally: product, price, promotion, and place. Although I didn't stick to that framework too closely, it is a helpful one. So how are you going to satisfy the needs that you've narrowed down to in your customer? The first place that you would start in your strategic plan is looking at the features and benefits of the product that you're going to offer. So take a good look at what you're good at. You've already found a large enough group of people that need a broad solution to whatever their pain point, whatever's motivating them to seek a solution. Then you can start designing the physical product or the service that you're offering. Usually we start with looking at what benefits the product is going to offer. Okay? So it might be something that saves her time. It might be something that enhances her health. It might be something that makes her feel important. It might be the benefit of making her feel secure. And the next step would be then to build those features into your product that would give her the benefit that she's seeking. So, if it's saving her time, I keep seeing this ad for a new washing machine that completes the wash in 20 minutes faster. If it's looking to enhance her health, maybe those vitamins in the water. Okay? If you're seeking to make her feel important, I think of my OnStar where, at least when I call them during a busy, horrible, stressful day, they treat you as if they're your concierge or, the local Cheers bar that you go to where everybody knows your name. If you're trying to make your customer feel secure, you can think about things that would reduce her stress in purchasing your product, like offering a warranty, follow-up support, follow-up advice, a good return policy. Again, using the optical business as an example, you can get glasses online very inexpensively, but, if you're buying them from an independent optician, you would get a free lifetime adjustment, cleaning, If you're buying them from a major chain, you might get a 90-day no-hassle return policy. That would add to your customer feeling secure about her eyeglass purchase. So it's not necessarily sort of personal security, but comfort level in the purchase decision. One thing you should note here when you're designing your product is really the warranty or the guarantee that you offer your customers is the most reliable signal that they have of the quality of the product. Customers really understand that you're not going to guarantee it for 5 years if you don't expect it to last for 5 years. So think of that as part of your product design. To what extent can you afford to stand behind it? Other issues in features and benefits of the product would be the branding, the elements that you choose there. You want to appeal to the personality of your market, choosing a brand name that's memorable, something that evokes an image that your customer can feel attached to. I like the one they have out now called Bliss Chocolate. That's a little square of highly rich chocolate that appeals to women that want an indulgence in their hectic day. Packaging, part of your product decision, should be attractive. It's your best marketing communication tool. Protect your product, obviously. Inform them with labeling. When it comes to packaging, you have to make sure that you're familiar with regulations on claims on the labels or contents that need to be on the labels. Services, if you're not offering a tangible product, you need to design them as carefully. You need to keep your quality consistent. Customers are going to expect to have the same level of quality, whether it's a hot meal or an oil change or dry cleaning, every single time they visit. That's your major challenge in product design when you're offering a service. They want to be treated the same way with the same level of enthusiasm and friendliness every time they deal with you. Next part of designing your marketing offer is the price. You need to set an exact price that your customer is going to pay for your goods in your marketing strategy. It's really common but not acceptable or helpful to just state that you're going to charge a reasonable price or a good price. I see that a lot. If you're selling organic apple butter, 1 kilogram, $10.99, state your price here. There's 3 main strategies people use to decide pricing. And here again, you probably want some input from the finance side. But if you're working on your own, the first approach is just to mark up your product from its cost. So again, if you're selling organic apple butter and it costs $5 to produce, you might decide to take a 50-55% margin, sell it at $10.99. And then if you launch other products in the line using that strategy, you would just add the same margin. Costco uses that strategy when they're pricing. You might decide to price at what the market will bear. Okay? Your market research might tell you that people are willing to pay $10.99 a kilogram for that product. So even if you get a super duper price on your ingredients and your costs go down to $2, you would still stay at that maximum price that people believe that the product is worth and they're willing to pay. Again, that depends on you doing some legwork on market research. And the other strategy is just pricing against the competition. So if the competition's at $14.99, you might want to match them and make the same money they're making. Or if you're new in the industry, you might want to be the lowest on the shelf. So, even if your cost went way up, say to $7, you might still want to keep it at $10.99, take a lower profit, and still make your sales target. Different ways to implement your pricing strategy. You might want to start with a lower introductory price. You might want to offer bulk prices, especially if you're selling to businesses. You might want to offer temporary price reductions during a key selling season. You might want to bundle prices, loyalty cards where the temp purchase is free. Just remember, it's usually easier to lower a price than it is to raise it after you've introduced it. And the other thing to remember is that your customer is not just looking at the price on the price sticker when she compares the value of your product to her other choices. She's considering the time and the effort that it takes to acquire your product and any other setup or acquisition costs she might encounter. So a good example I'm seeing recently is the iPhone 5, where you look at the price on the phone, but then you also have to factor in with the new adapter that it's using that all your old music players at home won't be any good, or you'll need to spend that money for a new adapter. And people will take that into account when they look at the price of that product. The next part of your marketing offer or marketing mix are your distribution decisions. They're often the hardest because they often require the most time to set up, and they sometimes involve a long-term commitment. Most services, if you're in the service industry, you need the presence of the customer when your service is being provided. So, of course, your location has to be convenient, and it also has to support your image. So, again, my trendy, chick-friendly dentist is right next to our neighborhood Starbucks in the strip mall, not in the strip mall down the street that doesn't have that same image. Different types of products are going to need different types of distribution. If you have a product that just speaks for itself, something that customers are going to pick up at the cash register, like a funny novelty keychain or pen, you'll need to distribute that widely at a lot of different places. But if you have a specialty product that you need information from the salespeople, you're probably going to choose to distribute it more selectively. So, let's see, you came up with a new green, environmentally friendly pool cleaning regimen. You probably wouldn't put that on the shelf at Walmart or Canadian Tire. You probably need it in the neighborhood pool stores where there's educated people that can explain how to do this new system to the customers. If you're looking at a bricks and mortar location, there's lots of tools online for site selection. Many of them are free, but you probably find it more cost effective to hire a firm or work with a specialist, at least for a short consultation. If you're signing a lease, you want to make sure that that location has the traffic and is accessible and has your target market located nearby. If you're selling online, again, your website location, you need to acquire enough traffic to support your sales targets. Lots of free tools to manage that, but you might want to outsource that if you have the financing. The next one is communication, and when you get to this point, you've really made all the critical decisions in your marketing strategy. Your job is just now to let the customer know about what it is that you're offering her. So the first step there is to clearly define the message that you want her to hear. What's going to create the strongest, most compelling call to action for her. So think of those infomercials that we see late at night, call now, call now. What is it that you will put in your message that will compel her to come into your location or your website? Marketing communication strategy includes a lot more than just advertising and selling, but it does include advertising and selling. Advertising in traditional media is actually surprisingly affordable, even for a startup. Newspaper, radio, transit ads are pretty cost effective and, again, surprisingly affordable. And the staff there will help you with design work. So often they can help you refine your message because they've been doing that kind of work and they're experts in it. When you're deciding if you're going to use traditional media about where to advertise, you really have to think about the type of information and how much information you need to get to your customer. So if your product's complicated, a print ad in the newspaper might be best. If it's a product that the customer will need urgently when they hear about it, maybe a radio ad on their way home and sitting in traffic is the choice that you would want if you want to have her stop in and pick up something like a healthy entree for dinner. Online advertising, also inexpensive, fairly easy to target a specific group. Small Business Solver has some tools on YouTube, how to use LinkedIn, for example, which claims to be the most cost-effective way of reaching business customers. After you've decided on advertising, you really have to look at your selling method, how you're going to incent salespeople, what techniques you're going to use, and then here you would start setting your sales targets for each individual in sales or each location, or maybe just per month. Your marketing communication plan also should include sales promotions, things like attending trade shows, contests you might run, coupons, other activities that you would do to promote your business. Public relations activities also included in your communication plan. Press releases to local newspapers often will get you articles about your business, give you some great publicity in your community. You would want to include in this strategy networking, trade associations you would join, chambers of commerce, business advisory councils, all part of the public relations blitz that you'll want to allocate efforts to getting your message out. You also want to plan your social media strategy. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter account should be considered. You'll want to plan their use carefully and execute it carefully. YouTube, certainly a great way to give customers a taste test of your services. And again, you can see Small Business Solver on the YouTube channel set up a whole lot of presentations there. It's a good example of how to use it. Depending on your business and your target market, you might want to investigate non-traditional, or what we often call guerrilla marketing techniques, usually aimed at a younger crowd, things like flash mobs or graffiti or anti-graffiti, but there's lots of information online if you want to.
What's the face off too with it?
Sorry? The most powerful marketing communication is actually going to take place largely out of your control, and that's the word of mouth communication that your customers are going to manage for you. It's always the number one way that people choose what companies or businesses they're going to deal with is word of mouth. So in your communication plan, your public relations or your media plan, you really should have a contingency plan there for how you're going to manage if there's negative publicity or negative buzz in blogs or things like that, how you're going to track that and address it. Do some thinking around that as well. Good to have a plan before you have a problem. So we talked about it in step 1, knowing yourself, and in step 2, choosing a customer, and step 3, getting to know her intimately. Step 4 was 4 areas of designing the marketing offer that you're going to satisfy her needs. Step 5 is about keeping the customer once you've got her in your door. And, this is really the one that I added to make us up to the 7 steps instead of 5, because it's easy to overlook when you start out. But you're going to be spending a lot of time and energy to come up with a plan to acquire customers, and that's expensive. One of the things that will really help you be successful is to think about how you're going to retain and build a relationship with that customer once you have been able to get her in the door. And I always notice that at the college in September at Tim Hortons. We get a whole lot of new international students every fall who haven't ordered from Tim Hortons before. And it takes them a bit of time to interpret the menu and figure out what a double-double is. And the Tim Hortons service is very, very slow the first few weeks of September. if they had to deal with new customers at their locations day in and day out, I don't know if they would make a profit. I don't think they could get enough traffic through the drive-thrus if they had to retrain us every time we went. And I think that's a good example for many companies that, the cost of serving a customer for the first time is much higher and your profit's much lower, especially on professional or personal services. Your customer service becomes more profitable when you get to know their needs. When you work with them, you can meet them much more efficiently. So businesses usually try to take a step back and weigh that cost of acquiring the customer against the lifetime value of the customer, targeting the group again that they think will be most profitable, but working out a strategy that also includes how they're going to retain those customers. So it's probably a good point here to point out, too, that as you work through your marketing strategy, it's pretty common to have to go back through a cycle, through an iterative cycle, where you get to this point and you have to go back and maybe adjust who that target market is, who is going to be the ones that are more profitable long term once you've looked at products and place and price, to make sure that your plan is going to be sustainable. So that's normal, that's expected, that when you get here in crafting your strategy, that you may go back and make some changes and work through it again. But it is, again, as I said, important to make sure you have a plan where you're going to develop loyalty and retention. Things like thank you cards and follow-up surveys, reminder cards are all helpful. On a high-ticket item, one of the most effective marketing strategies in your plan is that phone call a few days after the sale to make sure they're okay. Often you can resolve an issue that might have ended up with some very negative publicity if you contact them before things turn ugly. Step 6, doing the math. I work with an entrepreneur who reviews an awful lot of marketing plans. He's a successful investor, and people always look for his advice. The first question he asks when it's done is the candle worth the game, which is apparently a common expression, but he's the only person I know that uses it. What he's really saying is, at the end of the day, is all of this effort going to give you enough payoff to make it worth putting years of your life into? It's, again, when you determine the market size, often a great idea just doesn't have enough potential buyers to make it worth the game. So at this stage, you're going to project unit sales and dollar sales. You're going to look at your gross profit margins. You're going to identify the costs of your product development, location, communication plan. Again, you probably want to bring in your accountant for help. And then you have to make that final call. Are the profits that the strategy is going to generate worth the effort? There's a lot of tools, again, on Small Business Solvers, YouTube channels, how to do a marketing budget, how to look at your startup costs. And this is the stage where you have to do that analysis. Finally, step 7 is writing the plan. And I don't have much to say there. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Remember, it's a roadmap. It's your guide to the best route based on your current information. And just like those GPS units we have, you often need to reroute as you go. But if you work through this and put the time into the preparation, writing the plan should be fairly simple, and it's going to be the best map that you can have in your possession before you get started. And that is it. Thank you for your time today.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do right now is basically stop the recording, and we'll open everything up right now for questions. I see that